Hello, hello, and welcome to the Eclipse Evolution Podcast. I'm your hostess, Savannah Rose. I'm so excited to have you back today. I've been missing y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in wherever you're joining us from around the world. I'm so happy that this community has just grown so much, especially in this past year. And it's just my heart's delight to introduce an amazing guest with you today, Miss Layla Jones. Just in our few minutes of chatting behind the scenes, she's just a ray of sunshine and just absolutely so warm and inviting. And I'm really excited to share her story with you all today and have her share more as well about her new book that's coming out. And all her topics of discussion today I know are going to really move you, just because in my exploration of her journey, it's been extremely relatable, and I know that you all will benefit from it today. So Layla, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Savannah. I appreciate that. What a nice introduction.
Of course, yes. Well, like I said, I'm excited to have you, and I would love for you to just share more. I don't want to steal all the thunder. I'd love for you to speak on yourself, what you're about, what you're bringing to us today, and we'll dive in deeper.
Sure, great. So, yes, like you said, I've been on quite a journey in my personal and professional life. I started out, I was born in New Jersey and moved around 10 times across 3 states. And we moved a lot. And that is one of the things that's been a blessing in my life, actually, because I've been exposed to so many different cultures and people and environments. So I really enjoy relating with people that way. But on the flip side, I had challenges with that. Wasn't sure where I belonged, what home was, who I was. Growing up in predominantly white neighborhoods, I had a mixture of cultures when my home life was very different from my school life. And when you add to that I am a religious person, but I'm also a mystic. And so that sometimes clashed with some of my family's beliefs. So it was really a process of trying to figure out who I was authentically and how I wanted to show up in life. So that has turned into now me putting all those stories into a memoir, which is coming out in September. And it's called Unpacking My Boxes, a Projector's Journey Home. So I talk about all of that journey, plus starting a business, getting married, having kids, getting divorced, and then restarting that whole story of who am I and where do I belong and what is home. So I was able to take a lot of courses in quantum human design, and that's the projector part, that's my type.
Yeah.
And so that was very eye opening and helped me understand all these different things that I was going through as a kid and a young adult that I didn't understand at the time. So now I really feel like I've come home to myself and I can continue growing and learning. So I'm happy to share that with you and your audience too.
Oh my gosh. If I wasn't excited already, I'm just even more excited because I'm such a human design nerd, and it's still I
Oh,
feel like a very
great.
growing, a very growing just practice and I don't want to say curriculum, but just I say practice more so because it is about integrating it into your life. Like you learn about yourself, but then like when you really apply what you learn, it can change things in just such a miraculous way. I want to hear more about that because I'm a manifester, so I'm kind of different, but I would love to
Okay.
hear about, yeah, your experience as a projector.
Sure. Yeah. So you and I have something in common with you being a manifestor and me being a projector is that we generate energy differently than the rest of the world. So actually there's manifestors, projectors, and reflectors that make up about 30% of the population. And we aren't able to work in the traditional way because our energy works differently. That is interesting when you think about how 70% of the world works and that kind of hustle culture. And, we're here trying to keep up with that, but it's just not always a fit. So that's the times when you can end up burning yourself out faster. You can get, just really tired and sick and maybe not understand where those things are coming from. So for me as a projector, what makes that a little bit different is that in addition to those energy challenges at times are the challenges when we are trying to assert ourselves and share our knowledge. So projectors are kind of able to take in what's going on in their environment. And this is where the projector part comes in, we sort of project out that vision and we can help guide people to get to a vision, whether that's in your family life or at work. And that's wonderful and everything. But the challenge there is that we have to wait for the invitation, wait for the right people in the right situation to share that knowledge. So if we don't, we can come across as know-it-alls and we can kind of share it with the wrong people, and that can cause a lot of friction too. So with you as a manifester, and this is one of the things that I'm doing within Velimera, within my company, is kind of aligning all the different types and thinking about them as different pieces of a journey. So the manifester I think of as the gas in the gas tank. So you all are the ones with the ideas, you're getting it started and you're going and moving it through. And then there's the generators, and those are the ones that have their foot on the pedal. They're really starting things and or taking what you started and then driving, going on that journey. And then I think of the manifesting generators as like the race car drivers. They can go fast, they can do a lot of things. They, see all this stuff going by and they can pull it all together and make things happen. And then the projectors are like the map. So they are guiding people on that journey and helping them move through and, checking in, okay, do we need to go to a rest stop? Do we need to look at our route again and see what we're doing? And then the last piece, the reflectors, they're like the mirrors. So like the rear view mirror, side view mirror, they're looking behind and assessing what happened on the journey and then able to give that feedback. So if you take all of that and pull it together, you can see how we're all important. We all have a different role, but we need to know what our role is so that we're not stepping on anyone's toes and burning ourselves out and having challenges, especially in the workplace.
Oh my gosh. I love hearing just your perspective, like your unique perspective. I can totally tell that you're a projector. It's so beautiful. And I love just
Thank
hearing
you.
your of course, and I love your comprehensive understanding of all the types as well. I feel like that is really unique, and I'm just so excited. I'm gonna try not to just like hit you with 1,000 questions, but yeah,
Oh, it's okay.
so special. And I think like what you said was so important as far as like the energy and embracing like how your energy type is so different. Because I think, and this is something I can really relate to you with being a manifester is like the 9 to 5, like the hustle culture, like the being in your masculine, like that basically like almost killed me. I was like so burnt out and so exploited in the workplace because I do have like this crazy energy and all these ideas, and it can be like such a double-edged sword. But learning how to align my life in a way that works for me and that I'm able to like learn how to rest. Like learning how to rest was like my
Yes.
job last year, and it's so wild.
Mhm.
But I'm curious, like how do you integrate human design into your company, like into your work? I'm curious like how you apply that.
Yeah, yeah. So for a long while, so my company Velimera, we've been in business 22 years and we've been doing all kinds of things over that time: website development, technical writing, customer service training, software training, just all sorts of things. And it was actually last year that I decided to rebrand after I had gotten all of these certifications in human design and start integrating that into the business so that it feels more aligned with me and what I'm wanting to do and kind of my passion and looking forward. So the way I'm integrating that is I'm a coach and a consultant for seeker leaders and their teams. And so I define a seeker leader as a conscious executive, manager, business owner who is wanting to integrate spirituality into their work so that they can personally transform. And that's something that I've done all my life, but didn't know how to really pull that together into my business and turn it into a service. So that is what I'm working on, and the whole framework that I started to explain with the journey and the different types and where they fit in is part of that Discover Your Path framework that I can use with seeker leaders individually or with their teams. And the basis of it is really people starting to look at their types and seeing how they can learn more about their human design type. And like you just said, Savannah, you might look at that and look at your work and think, oh, that's why I got so burnt out last year, or from doing this project or whatever it was. Or, oh, that's why I was so excited about this particular work, because it really aligned with what my chart's saying. So it's first getting people to look at those pieces of themselves, and then seeing how the interplay is working within either the smaller leadership team or a team at large. And then you can start to figure out, okay, is this person in the right role, or are we giving them the right work? Are we giving them too much or too little, whatever it might be, so that you can kind of break down those barriers and look at maybe some things that were a challenge and you didn't know why. That's really the big thing when there's teams that have just hit a wall. There's, maybe they're productive, maybe they're doing their work, but there's a lot of interpersonal issues, or, people are just kind of clocking in, clocking out, not really engaged in what they're doing. And so it's starting to break that down by using the human design types to help people understand themselves better, and then hopefully have more empathy for other people too, because that's an important thing for me. We're all going through different things in life, have had different journeys. And I think sometimes we forget that and we don't really give that empathy to others, and we expect them to rise to an occasion that maybe they're not able to, or maybe that's not a fit for them. So that's something that's very important to me, to bottom line get people to understand themselves so that they can show up better in the workplace and be a contributing member that really helps everyone.
We need you out here. We need you, Layla. We do. That's so cool. I
Thank
love
you.
that. Oh my gosh. That is so cool. Oh, I'm nerding out right now. I'm nerding so hard. I'm so curious, like, what is your perspective? I mean, being a CEO and a seeker leader yourself, and you read my mind,
Yeah.
because when I saw that in your signature, like empowering seeker leaders, I'm like, I need to know what she means by that. That's so clever. So thank you for explaining that. I'm so curious, like, with you as a seeker leader yourself, I feel like there's this big narrative right now, especially with being a business owner. And this is something that me as a manifester and business owner I struggle with, is that consistency piece. Given that, like, I go through these big energy cycles and need big rest cycles and that kind of thing, you hear this narrative of like you have to do something every day and you have to,
Yeah.
like, consistency is key, and like leaders have to show up every day. Like, I feel like that's something that I'm still learning to get my hands around. I'm curious, like, how your relationship to that narrative has been and how you address it in the work that you do, and even with your own journey.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think for a specific example where I've seen it a lot is with social media and, being a business owner and trying to
Yeah,
be
you're in
out
my
there
head.
enough and, work the algorithms, whatever it is, it can be really challenging. And it's funny because, and it's hard, but I've had to learn to ignore some of that traditional advice because it's not a fit for me. But the other thing that I've noticed when I've had people try to help me with my social media and, maybe ghostwrite some things or put it out there, even though maybe the audience couldn't put their finger on it, it was like they knew it wasn't me writing. And for some reason, as a projector, I have to be the one writing that copy and getting those things out there. So that means that I have to, like you said, Savannah, I have to pay attention to my cycles of rest too. And, I can't be on there 3 times a day and, interacting all the time. And I also have to be selective in the platforms that I use and what feels right for me and where my audience is. So I've become more focused on the quality of what I'm putting out there. And, if there's a day where I look at my social media and I say, oh man, I haven't posted in like 4 days, but if there isn't anything that's bubbling up that I feel is important enough to put out there, I just let that go. And I say, I'm just going to leave it as is. And, I don't have like a social media calendar or anything like that because I've tried to do that in the past, but then it doesn't come across as authentic. And since that's such a big piece of what I do, and one of the main things that's in my human design chart is for my life purpose is to live with passion and authenticity and to show others how to do that. So if I'm not doing that, it's going to come across pretty quickly. And it's hard because you look at all the advice out there on how to market your business, even beyond just social media. And it's always like that push, that hustle. You've got to go to all these networking events. You've got to do all these things. But that's where paying attention to your energy and how you want to show up makes sense instead of just listening to the blanket advice that's out there.
Well, thank you for giving me permission to do less
Yeah.
because oh, no, it's all seriousness. That was so validating because that's something that, yes, like as I've been really leaning more into the social media side and not wanting to be bossed around by the algorithm, that's something that like I think it can feel a little like tricky to navigate, but you're right, like you're when you lean into that authenticity and align with it, you are just so much more potent, and like that quality over quantity really does make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very true. And I think that if you have a really strong community that you're building, and we were kind of talking about this before we hit record, that word of mouth is what's going to be important, and people feeling that they can connect with you, and then they start talking about you to other people, and that really starts to grow it too. And then you can more authentically connect with the people that you're interacting with, and it's not just a numbers game, because that's the other thing that can come up where you're like, oh, I don't have enough followers, or I don't have, but maybe you don't have, who knows, 10,000, 20,000, whatever that big goal number is now for followers, but maybe the ones you have are like your core ones that are just going to talk you up all the time, and that are going to follow you with whatever you're doing and support you, and make you feel good about the work that you're doing. I think that's important too, looking at the quality of your community and your audience and not just the quantity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's something that's so important. And I hope that our listeners and viewers take home with them as well, as like to be careful of that comparison game, especially when it comes down to the how other types are maybe operating in the world. I think that's something like I envy my generator friends or my partner who's
Yeah,
a
right.
manifesting generator, and it's just he is just up and at 'em every day, and he always in a loving way like will tease me about how much sleep I need, and he just like cannot relate because he's like 8 hours, 6 hours, he's like boom ready to do the day, and he's doing so much, and I need like my 10, 12 hours.
Yeah,
But I think
right,
that
right.
comparison piece can be tricky sometimes.
Yeah, it can. And, like I said earlier, especially when it's the majority of the population that fits into that kind of mold where they can work that way, they can, they don't have to rest maybe in the same way. I mean, the other types still need to rest too. That's important for everybody, but it just looks different for them. And like you said, even you might get your 10 hours of sleep, but you might still need a nap in the middle of the day too,
It's time
because
to put
that
no
can
napping,
happen.
yeah.
And I know for me, the with being a projector, one of the other things, like I was saying, how I take in energy from other people and I can read people pretty well, that takes up energy too. And so
Yes.
it might look like I'm not doing anything. I might be at a networking event just sitting there talking, but the more people in the room, the more of that energy I'm taking in. And so that might be my big thing for the day, 2 hours. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go veg out and maybe just listen to some music, do a little bit of chores around the house, nothing too extreme. But that's one of the challenges that I talk about in my book too, that when I was married and he was also my business partner, he would often call me lazy. And it was just like, and he's a manifesting generator. And so, I could not keep up. I would try then, but didn't know I was a projector. And so all these different weird sicknesses would come up, and, all this stuff. And I just didn't know what was going on. So, trying to push and compare yourself to a manifesting generator or generator, when you're one of the other three types, the manifestor, projector, reflector, that doesn't generate energy in the same way, it can really just be a losing game. And it's something that you have to be really careful about and be really vocal about it. And that's where knowing your type, knowing yourself comes into play, so that you can speak up and let people know, this isn't really going to work for me to do it that way.
Absolutely. I'm curious, like, how do you listen to those cues in yourself and even learn what those cues are when you are recognizing, oh, I need to say something about this, or you're starting to notice like moving out of
Mm,
alignment. Like, I know for me as a manifester, it's like when that irritability and the anger shows up, that's when I'm like, if I'm
yeah,
starting to get a little crabby, that's when I'm like, okay, I need to like have some time to
right.
myself, I need to sleep and stuff. But I mean, that's just
Yeah.
me. I'm curious, like, what advice you have to share with others about how to notice that.
Sure. Yeah, no, you definitely tapped in on a good one. So that's called like your not self theme or your emotional theme. So for manifestors, it is anger that comes up. And that's usually your sign that it's like, oh, somebody's making me mad.
Yeah.
Or something's not working, something's out of alignment. So I've got to figure something out here. And then with the generators, it's frustration that comes up for them. So like, everything they try, if they fail, and it's just like, oh, just, that frustration, not being able to move forward. And then manifesting generators get both the anger and the frustration, or maybe one sometimes, maybe another. So that both of those can come up, and that's something to pay attention to. With projectors, with me, it's bitterness, where you're just like bitter with everyone around you. You're just like, whatever, do whatever you want to do. I don't care. That kind of attitude. And so that's what will tell me that I need to take a step back. And then with reflectors, it's disappointment, because remember, they're the ones that are looking back on things. And so they're often able to see the potential of others a little bit better. And so if people aren't meeting that potential, then there's a lot of disappointment that they will feel in a certain situation. So, what I typically tell people, as especially if they're trying to make some big transition in their life or work, is really to journal and to write down and pay attention to when those different not self themes are showing up, and to see if they're finding any sort of trends there. And for me in particular, what I've been doing lately is, when I wake up in the morning and I look at my calendar, then I do that emotional check in. And, am I really excited about my day, or, something making me go, gosh, I don't know if I want to deal with this day. And then I start breaking it down, looking at everything that I have on my calendar and saying, which one of these things is bringing that up? Because it's typically not everything that's on there, but I'll start kind of going down that list and saying, oh, it's that meeting, or it's that project work that I'm doing, or, that task, that to-do list item that I have to do. And then I start asking myself questions about it, like, what is it that's making me feel like this? Why am I resistant to doing this? And that starts to reveal a lot, because if you again are journaling and start seeing a trend, is it always that same client that's making you feel that way, or that type of work, or that friend you're going to lunch with, whatever it might be? You can start looking at those things and seeing, is this something that where I need to change that interaction, or end a certain relationship, or reframe it, whatever it might be, so that you can get back in alignment with your emotions.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Oh, wow. So well said. I'm just like mesmerized right now. Just soaking it up. I love it. No, it's so refreshing to hear again just your point of view and your deep understanding of this. And I just know my listeners are gonna be really jazzed to hear about it as well. I'm
Okay.
curious, like, you had mentioned in your email with me, and I know your team mentioned this a little bit as well, like when it comes down to specifically like life and work transitions. I'm curious, like,
Mm.
and this can be in relation to human design or just your unique perspective as well. Like, when it's time for a change, or when it's time to like choose the next thing, or I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts are on like just life transitions as a whole, whether it's with career or otherwise, like how you approach those.
Yeah, that's kind of going back to what I was saying with looking at trends and patterns. What I've seen in my life is, especially I'll just take career just to make it easier to focus on one thing, that when I've been going along and doing something the same way and it's worked really well and, making money, getting clients, all of that. And then all of a sudden something switches where it's like all the things that I was traditionally doing is it's suddenly not working, or I'm running into friction with it. I'm maybe attracting the wrong people into my space, or, I lose a client. I suddenly am not making as much money with something. And those things start to show up over and over and over, where it's like you just feel like you're hitting a wall with all the different things that you're doing. And so those are the times when I've had to take a step back. And so a really specific example that I talk about in my book, the work that I've been doing for 11 years now is with a government contract where I'm a project manager. And several years ago, it was one of those things where, I have a really good rapport with the team, and I've been doing different things, playing different roles. And all of a sudden, I was trying to do what I had normally been doing. And, they're used to me being outspoken and giving my opinion and all of that. And so I was doing that. And then suddenly no one was listening to me, or I was getting pushed back, or other people's ideas were being listened to, even if they were similar to mine. And those sorts of things started coming up. And I was like, what is going on? Like, why is this changing all of a sudden? And I couldn't figure it out. So I ended up taking time off from that, and I started what has now become this journey that I'm on now. But I tried to start it then. It wasn't quite the right time, but I did at least do some research and take that step back and start to look at, is this still the work that I want to do? Am I trying to do something else? And that time just meant the world to me, because I did eventually come back to doing the work, but I had a different perspective on myself and a different energy, a different approach to it. So I think that sometimes in, thinking about your audience, if they're trying to figure it out, it kind of ties into some of the things with human design too, with your decision making, which is focused on your authority, it's called, within your human design type. So mine is emotional authority. And so that's why, first thing in the morning, like I said, I'm checking in my emotions and figuring out those bigger decisions. And with other folks, it can be different things. They can just get that gut reaction, like the splenic authority, where they just know in their gut if something feels right or it doesn't. They can just tap into maybe some of the timing and different things that are going on in their life, and figure out what to do there. There's other folks that have to talk it out, kind of talk out their decisions with other people, and see how others are reacting to that in order to figure out what next steps to take. So, I think to sum it up, it is starting out looking at those trends and what's happening in your life or work, to see if something might be telling you it's time for a change, and then looking at your human design authority to see what is specific to you on how you make decisions and make those changes.
Thank you so much for explaining the authority piece, and you said it so beautifully, and like how it can be this kind of lantern to guide your steps, and something that you
That's a
can
good
incorporate
word.
into your things, incorporate into your like daily routine as well. It sounds like.
Right. Right. Yes. Yeah. And sometimes, I make the joke too with the authority that sometimes people will take it to the extreme and, be like, well, should I eat ice cream today or something? It's like, let me go to my
Always,
authority.
every
You
day.
can do that, but I think it works best for kind of those bigger decisions where you're not sure where to go or what to do. So you can start to listen to that. And if it's something that's brand new to you, you can try it out on the smaller decisions and see how that works, and then work your way up to the larger ones too.
For sure. Yeah, and I think you said something that was really interesting. I wrote it down. It was like how this knowledge can help you change your perception of yourself, or like how you perceive perspective on self. I can't even read my own handwriting. Your
Yes.
perspective on yourself.
Right.
I think that is so unique, because I think that because for me, like, I've struggled a lot with codependency in the past. And so, like, advocating for my needs was something that did not have a clue how to do. And so I know, like, with human design, it was such a gift having that knowledge, because with me being an emotional authority center as well, and also just someone who needs a lot of rest and alone time, learning that about myself was kind of again, like that lantern on guiding myself on like setting boundaries, where it was like if a decision or something was coming to me and like a relationship or something, I was able to understand like myself and like, hey, I can't talk about this right now, or I need some time to like forgive you, or whatever it is, and like I need to
Right.
actually sleep on this, and instead of like having that previous like compulsion to just like want things to be better, and like that would make me override my needs, understanding that like I am kind of like the turtle, where like I need that time and I need to
Right.
go on my shell for a bit. Like it was such a way to move forward in a more empowered way, and like you said, more authentic way. But especially for someone who like maybe didn't really know how to do that, or know why I was feeling a certain kind of way. Like I think this can be such a vast knowledge that you can apply to, like you said, your career, to relationships, to just relationship with self. I think that's really important.
Right, right. Yeah, no, you really hit on that, Savannah, because it's like when you have that awareness of yourself, then you start to notice how you're appearing to other people. And then you can make that decision, like, am I okay with how I was showing up? Or is the way I was showing up trying to tell me something, trying to teach me something? Because in that situation that I just mentioned with leaving the contract work for a while, I was very bitter with everyone. So, that was my not self theme showing up. And so I had to sit with that and figure it out. Was it ego coming up that, oh, I want to be listened to and no one's listening to me? Or was it something really valuable that I was bringing forward and I wasn't being listened to? And so, when you look at those things, and like you said, you can start to advocate for yourself if you're feeling like, no, this is really who I am, how I want to show up, I'm good with it, and maybe I need to communicate that with other people. And so that's really great that you notice that, because the other piece with your human design chart, your strategy for manifestors, it's to inform. And so that's taking that step and saying, you know what, yeah, there's something out of alignment here, and I need to let the people around me know so that I can inform them and they understand what's happening. And sometimes that can be hard, just standing up for yourself, even if you feel pretty comfortable and really self-assured. It can still be hard when you're having to express that to people that might not understand. They don't know human design. They might not be interested in that at all. But it's a way of explaining it and getting to know yourself better. Yes, I need to rest. Yes, I need this. And then if you're, with the right person in the right group, you can explain to them and have a discussion on how to better navigate a situation, or, when something like this shows up in the future, here's something that would help me. So it really opens up that dialogue once people start to understand themselves better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think with like that understanding yourself better, there does come, I think, not a, I mean, learning curve, yes, but almost like I know for me, it's been like a way to practice a lot of radical acceptance. Because I know, like, for me as a manifester, one of the things, I know when I found this out, it was like, okay, that explains a lot, but I still have moments where I don't really like it. And it's my repelling aura, and how I can be very, even without even realizing it, like I can repel people, or people are very intimidated by me. And that's something that like has always been hurtful, because I mean, hopefully you can sense my energy. I like to just golden retriever around the world, and just, I don't know. I'm also a Pisces moon, so I'm just like, I just want to like love everything. So that's very much my
Yeah.
core. Yeah, but then I also have like repelling manifesting a manifestor aura, and then I also have I'm a Scorpio rising. Like I present as this I don't big energy, and I know that like who I'm meant to be around will be attracted to me, but there are times when I'm like I want this friend or I want this opportunity or I'm just living my life and receiving backlash or something, and I'm like my feelings are hurt. I don't feel like I have control over it. So that's something that
Right.
I know like I'm still learning to accept and embrace.
Sure.
But I'm really glad that I was able to learn about that because I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's really cool. I like that term, Savannah, the radical self-acceptance, because that's really what it's about. And because as you go through your chart and learn more about yourself, you are going to see those things and it might remind you of situations in the past, like, oh yeah, that energy came up at that at that point. That's what that was about. And it starts to tap into like the shadow side or the shadow work, which
Yep.
sometimes people don't like to address that, and I often tell people, I know I'm a walking paradox. Like I know that. And I think all of us are in different ways that we can have two different sides that show up, like you said, you're doing this podcast, you're really friendly and open, but then there's times where you're like, maybe my energy is going to repel people and I'm okay with that. Maybe there's certain times I don't want to be in that space or do that, and that's okay. So, it's really learning to integrate those two sides and be okay with it and not feel like you're stuck into one personality type or one way of being or trying to fit in and change who you are to try to fit in within a certain community or family, workplace, whatever it is. So I've learned that a lot, especially as I reflected on moving and all of that in so many different places, that I started to, in looking back as I was writing the memoir, just reflecting on where did I really feel like I fit in, and was I showing up as my authentic self there, whether it was a relationship, a romantic relationship or friendship, whatever it was, that it made me look at that and say, okay, was that person friends with me, but were they really connecting with me, the authentic me, or was I showing up a different way just to try to get more friends? So, those kinds of questions will keep coming up in life, in adult years and going on and trying to figure that out to see, are you accepting all of you? So it's not just the positive pieces, but are you accepting everything that shows up too?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, when you said you're a walking paradox, gosh, I've never related to something more. I feel you, my friend. Oh my gosh. And that's really like I feel like one of my missions right now is to I think especially as women, I feel like maybe you can relate to this. It's like I feel like as women, we historically haven't been given as much permission like to show up as our full paradoxical, complicated, seasonal selves. Like depending on where I'm at
Yes.
in my cycle, I'm a different person. Like when I'm
Right.
like follicular and ovulating, I am like I'm like so
Yes, right. That
oh,
is so true. Yeah, yeah. And I'm perimenopausal now, so it's a roller coaster.
I know. I'm so much
So
like
I
what?
never know I'm gonna show up.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
no, it's very true. And, I think for me growing up, I had a mom who's an extrovert and she didn't understand how she could have produced a child that was an introvert and, felt I was so different from her. And so, right from the beginning, it was, okay, you need to be different. You need to be more like this. And so that was super challenging. And, thinking about that and trying to figure out who I was, how I wanted to show up. And, it was something that I carried with me into adulthood, unfortunately. And so it really wasn't until my early fees that I started looking at things and saying, something's really wrong here. Like, I need to stop trying to fit into everybody else's world and figure out what kind of world I want to live in. And then you can start attracting the people into it that are a good fit and a good energetic match for you.
Hmm. For sure, absolutely. It's like, oh, because I mean, I've been in the know about human design for a few years, but I kind of had this like similar to you, like this radical moment of like, okay, I'm actually gonna apply this knowledge. I'm gonna start doing the things that it's suggesting for me, and I started doing that heavily. Gosh, what year is it? 20. Okay, so like early.
Oh, good. I'm not the only one that does that.
You would not believe how many
Do
times
that all
I
the
will still
time.
write like, yeah, the wrong year, wrong day. Yeah, it's too frequent. But
Right.
yeah, so I would say like maybe a year, no, maybe 2 years now. I started to like actually take the formula for manifestors, if you want to call it that, and like my life fit that more rather than like what I just was
Mm,
conditioned to do, like that generator conditioning. And it's
yeah.
just crazy how I was able to not just feel more in tune with myself, but just to attract, like you said, the right people, like the people who like truly love me and truly see me and support me and embrace me. It's just such a beautiful experience.
Right, right. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I think that that's the most important thing with all of this, that like sometimes because there's all different kinds of tests or assessments or things that you can take out there, to like the Enneagram and those sorts of things to help you figure out who you are and how you show up. And those are all great because they all give you information from a slightly different perspective, which is really cool. But I think with any of those that you're doing, and human design included, it's important not to just say, well, for me as a projector, like, oh, well, I can't do anything. I have to wait for everybody to invite me to do stuff, because then you won't ever do anything.
Someone had
And
found
so,
you. Yeah, you reached out to me, and I'm like, get on my show, girl. Yes.
yes, yeah, exactly. So, it's those kinds of things where you have to kind of play with your energies. And for me, I found that my invitations as a projector don't always come from people. They can come from dreams or just other signs and different things that show up in my life. And I'm like, oh, okay. There's something. Let me write that down and see if it comes up again. And again, I start seeing those trends and I say, okay, maybe I need to move in that direction, or contact that person or something. And I think that I see everything that we do in our lives as some sort of journey, and some sort of adventure. I use that term a lot. And so it doesn't always mean that that blessing, that adventure, whatever it is a part of your life for a lifetime. A relationship too, it might be something where you're both entering into it and you're learning something, you're teaching each other something. And this gets into kind of a bigger picture of like karmic relationships and those kinds of things that I've explored a lot. So two people get together, and way back when their souls were connecting, they
Yeah.
decided that they were going to get together in this lifetime. And then you learn something from that, and maybe you stay together, maybe you move on. But I think that is really challenging at times, and I know it was for me personally, where you go into something. And when I think about my marriage, I was a very different person then. I got married in my early 20s. I'm a very different person now. And over that time, I started growing and changing and learning about different things. But my ex-husband wanted me to stay the same because, that was what we had committed to. We had a certain agreement, unwritten agreement on how we were going to interact with each other, what our roles were going to be. So when that kind of thing happens and then one person starts changing, it's like, oh, what do we do now? And those things can be really difficult for both people as you start to think about how you're going to make that transition, and then what's next after you do that. So taking all of that together and looking at your human design type, and we don't have enough time, but there's so many things you can look at in your chart to help you figure out, where am I in my astrological developmental cycle? Am I heading into my 30s or 40s or 50s? Because there's certain lessons that come up at those times too that can help you figure out, okay, this is the lesson that I'm going to have to go through. And then here's what it might look like on the other side. So, yeah, so it's very exciting. There's so many pieces to it. And, I'm still learning things every day, which is really cool.
For sure. Oh, yes. Well, send me some good vibes because I just started my Saturn return.
Oh, wow, that's exciting. Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Oh,
No,
I
I
love
know it's
that.
like
I
a
love that.
cosmic glow up and that it's for my greater good, but I definitely have been
Yeah.
um I would say like squaring up with certain things that just weren't working anymore. But I'm grateful for
Right.
it though. I really am.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you really start to define yourself as who you are and kind of that, older adult, and you have those years of separation from the family life, the childhood kind of family life, and you start to shed some of those things that maybe don't work for you anymore, and really strike out into who Savannah wants to be going forward. So that's pretty cool.
Here we go. The world better get ready.
That's
I'm coming in with my
exciting. Yeah.
manifestor
Oh,
energy.
I know, right, right. You're really gonna be putting in the gas. That's good.
Yes. Well, you've mentioned it a few times. I wanted to touch upon, with our few minutes left, your book that's coming out September 24th, right?
25th. Yeah.
5th. Okay, got it, got it. I knew it was right around there. Okay, amazing. Well, preemptive congratulations, but I know it's going to be magical. I
Thank
can't wait
you.
to get my hands on a copy. I'm curious like
Yeah.
how you're feeling about it coming out pretty soon, and if you would like to
Yeah.
share a little bit more. And I know you shared some, but share a little bit more about like how you started writing it and like what's within and just your journey becoming a self-published author, and that's so exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, my book is Unpacking My Boxes, A Projector's Journey Home. And I started writing it in 2020. And I got the idea because that was the year that my divorce was final. And I was reflecting back on the day that, or the day before I was actually going to move, and I had all my boxes packed up and was in our primary bedroom and talking to soon be my ex-husband. And I was talking to him about lots of logistical things. And then he was looking around and he made this comment that he said he felt like I never really unpacked myself there. And I was like, whoa, like that just really stood out to me. And he was talking about these boxes. I had these 5 boxes that I'd been lugging around with me and would never unpack. And it started when I was 17 and moved from Southern California right before my senior year of high school, because my mom was downsized. And so we ended up having to move to Colorado, and I was not expecting that, and it was just devastating. I had my first boyfriend, I had all these friends, and everything was wonderful. I loved that part of the country, so I just kept those boxes packed up, like literally and figuratively, and just really would not let myself fully out anymore, because I felt like, what's the point? I left behind this wonderful life, and I don't know how to get that back. So it started out with me writing the book just about like getting to the point of unpacking the physical boxes. And then I won't totally spoil it, but something happened where I talk about it in the book. Something happened where I thought that was going to be like my happily ever after. And then I got writer's block for 4 years. And so I put the book aside and then picked it up again around the same time I was doing the human design certification classes. And that's when I realized that not only had I packed up all that physical stuff, but there was emotional baggage there too that I hadn't addressed. And, I'd had deaths in the family, I hadn't processed those, just all kinds of things that were going on. And so then that's the second and third parts of the book where I really point that out and talk about how I started figuring out who I was, and like you said, the radical self-acceptance, that's what that was all about, seeing, okay, yeah, I had these challenges, I had these issues. Yes, I went through divorce. Yes, I had a challenging time being a mom. I have 2 girls now that are 16 and 10, and we co-parent them. And so, there was just all this stuff mixed up in there that I had to really figure out so that I could show up the way that I wanted to at home and at work. So yeah, so it's really exciting. And I started down one path with a publisher and just didn't feel like I was getting the story out the way that I wanted, and there were some challenges there. So depending on when you're watching this, it might still look like you can get it online at Amazon, but definitely come to my website at elamera.com where you can sign up for the book launch list, and then I'll be announcing how you can purchase it and pre-order it soon.
Beautiful. Perfect. Well, you read
Yeah.
my mind yet again. I was going to ask how people can can get in touch with you. And so, can you say your
Yeah.
website one more time? And I'll also include the links
Sure.
to everything. And then when your book link is live, you can send it to me, and I'll update
Yeah.
everything so it'll be right
Great.
there for folks.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Okay,
yes, can you share
perfect.
your website again, and then your social
Yeah,
media as well, if you'd like to tag us on that.
sure. Yeah, yeah. So it's velamira.com. So VELAMIRA.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn, and I think it's Layla Jones Velamira, if I remember correctly. And I'm also on Blue Sky under the Layla Jones.
Nice. Perfect. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Layla, this has been such a fun conversation. I've loved
Thank
it. You
you.
have such amazing insights. I knew it was going to be a good one, but this was super juicy. I
Oh,
loved
oh, great. Well,
it.
thank you. It was great talking to you. It's always nice to talk to someone that knows about some of the human design stuff and using it in their life. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, yes, I loved it.
Yeah.
And thank you again. And thank you to everyone who tuned in today. I truly appreciate it. And please check out Layla's book when it is out, coming out this September. So exciting. And thank you again, everybody. Thank you, Layla. And I will chat with you all
Thank
later.
you.
Bye for now.
Bye. Thanks.